Good morning. So it is a pleasure, honor, delight to be with all of you. And I think it's so nice to see that a place like Somaya, you have students and faculty from across the disciplines coming together. So when we were walking from the guest house, our Parvati madam got a call from your other campus, somebody from Department of Physiotherapy conveying that he or she is attending it. So I was quite happy. I think that is okay. So for some of you who are the youngsters, you know, we often hear the word IT. And whenever you think of IT, what comes to your mind? What do you think IT immediately connotes to you? You see, for we, the older generation, it is the income tax. Okay? And for the current generation, it is information technology. But quite often we forget that actually IT stands for India's tomorrow. And it is not my quote. It is a quote from Atal Bihari Vajpayee. Okay, way back in 1999, some of us were writing something called IT policy. And, you know, so at that time, he said, and the reason why Professor Shivgankar was so nice, was very kind to me, and the reason why many of us spend time with you people is India's tomorrow is sitting here. We are all India's yesterday. Okay? Many of you are India's today, but I do see a good number of India's tomorrow. Okay? So that is the reason why we get so excited about. Okay? So what I plan to do today is simple. That Dr. Rajshekharan Pillai was very kind, my long-time friend, and he said that come and give a talk. So I was just thinking what would be the right stuff, and he did mention to me that it is actually people across the disciplines. So I thought that something would be interesting. And I think the last maybe about 18 hours, I have been having unusual, it's so nice feeling. Dr. Ifran was nice, and thanks to Dr. Parvati, she seems to have a magic of touching you at many, many times in many different channels. And then it was very touching to find that Ifran met me at the airport. See, normally people send their cars, that's it, right? But here is a senior faculty member coming, and much more interesting, he came with a bouquet right at the airport. Normally people give the bouquet at the time of arrival in the campus. So nice, I think keep it up. And so Parvati ma'am, so thank you. So for all the help and support. So what I will do is that approximately about 45 minutes is what I will do the talk, so that you get some time to ask questions. Because, you know, these days in many places, I almost do the opposite. I just don't talk. I only answer questions. Because I find that it's much more useful way. But sometimes, you know, a talk makes it a little easier because you start with something so that you can actually ask questions. So do feel comfortable asking questions, and remember the famous Nobel laureate's quotation, there are no stupid questions. Okay, all questions are great questions. Okay, so what I will do is that I will spend about a couple of minutes. I think it is also important. I like this. This is something which I borrowed from one of my students. One of my students wrote this topic a couple of years back. He said, look, this is the talk you should give. So idea is, what I know best is INT put together, right? So I call it India, IT, IIT, IIIT. Okay, so this is what I know it well. So this is what, so I call it higher education in the post-independent India and technology. And remember, both of them are very large areas. Higher education is big. So within that, to a large extent, what I talk of is higher technical education, within that higher IT education. And then once again, technology is huge. Okay, so I can't do justice for all of them. So I actually talk about what is broadly known as information technology. But I will spend about a couple of minutes setting the context, particularly for a younger generation, what India is and what India was. It's also important, we should not forget. Then we will get into what is that IT has contributed to India. Because you see, a lot of times you hear the IT, but I think it is also important to get the perspective with some numbers. Then, it is interesting. Lots of people talk about IITs, but a lot of people do not know IIT. It is also important to know what makes an IIT and what impact IITs have done to the society. And of course, I had been personally involved with IIIT-Bangalore and indirectly with a large number of other IIITs also. I will talk about the IIIT system and then kind of conclude. Okay? So this is, I will spend a few minutes. I want you to kind of look at this. This is sometimes, we forget. So I am not a person who think that, look, we should chest beat and we have done a lot, etc. We have a long way to go. We have a long way to go. No doubts about it. But we have come a long way. See, I am talking of two of the social sectors. See, education and healthcare are the two important healthcare for any economy, any enterprise, any country. And two dimensions, as a country, this is what we have. So when we got independence in 1947, our literacy was just 12%. These are all data from fairly reliable source, okay? So this is from the parliamentary source. Some of them I would have taken from Wikipedia. So as much as possible, so, but none of them are imagined numbers, none of them are opinions, okay? They are actual data, okay? And sometimes the data could differ, okay? 12% could be 14%, but doesn't matter. Again, 74%. But it's amazing. Our literacy rate, we have improved 6 times in the 60 years, 70 years, okay? And what is interesting for many of you to realize is, quite often you will hear amazing stories about Singapore. It's great. It's a great country. I love that country. I keep visiting. But remember, it is not even half Mumbai, right? And look at the last line. At the time of independence, we were just 34 crores, 340 million. Today, we are 1.4 billion, 140 crores. For nearly 4 times increased population, to have reached this level of literacy means that we have achieved something. And we, the teachers, we can feel justly proud. We have contributed maybe a small percent, 0.00001%. But nonetheless, as a teacher, I feel humbled and happy that somewhere along, in spite of so many deficiencies, and if you want to be a critic, you can say, we still have 26% illiterate, isn't it a shame? It is a shame. No ifs and buts about it. But the fact that we have actually been able to achieve. But what is even more dramatic to me, just look at the life expectancy. This captures in one number the overall health of a nation, overall health of a population, overall health of the people. Okay? So we were barely 32 years of life expectancy. We have come to 70. In fact, in the lighter vein, we are making India a kind of old Indians, many of us belong to that category, so we are actually going to have, we might actually have other problems, because there will be geriatric problems. A lot of old guys will be sitting around not getting out, and it is making difficult for youngsters, because you have to work hard to make us live, right? So that is, but at the same time, what it means is, the health of the nation has dramatically improved. Once again, factor this. Life expectancy have gone up from 32 to 70 when the population has increased 3 times more. So it actually emphasizes the fact that we have done a few things well. So I thought that, this is something which we should not forget. Okay. So let me also tell you what has happened, because sometimes, it is good to kind of tell you things which you can relate to. Okay. Once upon a time, okay, just about 48 years back, I landed in United States. So I thought you should know how life was. That as graduate students, we are allowed by Reserve Bank of India to carry foreign exchange equivalent to 100 rupees. Those days dollar was not 90 rupees, dollar was 7.5 rupees. So about $12 is what we carried in our pocket and landed in a country called United States. More interesting, in my 4 years of PhD degree, I made one phone call to my home. More interesting, many of my classmates did not even make that one call because they never had a phone. Right? And you make maybe 4 phone calls every hour, if not every day. Okay? And it was a princely sum. To call home was $14 of AT&T, and our scholarship was $250. Okay? So just to give you some, okay, so how far we have come. And it's interesting. I enter Chicago airport, so-called O'Hare, ORD, from Chennai to ORD, and to go to a place called Purdue University where I studied. And then the person at the counter was reasonably condescending. He said, "Why have you come here? To take away my job?" Right? So there was a fair amount of, what I would say, feeling that we are taking away their jobs. I can understand, because, the people at the immigration counter and all, they don't make enough money. And I also realize that, some of these things you feel and you realize only when you see. Because to some extent, India was a poor country, much poorer than what it is today. To be poor in a poor country is one thing. To be poor in a rich country is much harder. And that is precisely what this meant. And then more interesting, I go to a haircut and the barber asked me, "Where are you from?" I said, "Madras, India." He did not recognize both. He said, "Look, is it close to Bangkok?" That's exactly what he asked. Okay? So what it meant is that India was just non-existent in people's minds. We just did not matter. Okay? That is what we were just during independence. Okay? So now, I think, a lot of times people keep asking me, there is too much noise made about this IT, okay? And, the IT professionals talk a lot. And then, when Google fires or Microsoft fires, it's a big news. But, people are losing jobs left, right, and right everywhere, but nobody writes about them. So why is it that is IT getting undue importance? Okay, partly yes. I think the folks in Times of India and Economic Times and other newspapers seem to be having a special love for IT. So if it happens in IT, they write more about us. But at the same time, there is something which IT has contributed, and particularly for you youngsters, you should know these numbers so that you can get some idea. And don't get swayed, because it's always, numbers are good, because numbers speak the truth. And remember, this country's motto is Satyameva Jayate. So go by numbers, and you need to have the right numbers. Okay? So one of the reasons why IT gets its importance, in fact, we should give credit to, this is something which sometimes we don't do. I think, there are good politicians and bad politicians. And to some extent it is true of everything, right? There are good everything, right? But I think in India, we make too much fun about the bad politicians and we don't give credit to good politicians. So Madhavrao Sindhya is a person who actually termed the T as the third T. Okay, again for you younger generation, the first T which contributed to India's export for quite some time happens to be something called textiles. The second T is the tea that you and I drink. The third T is information technology. So it was Madhavrao Sindhya who actually thought that IT should also follow other T. Good or bad, it doesn't matter, but you all know that not very far from here, there's a town called Ahmedabad, right? Ahmedabad had something called a Textile Research Institute. And I come from Tamil Nadu. There is a town called Coimbatore, which also is famous for textile. Coimbatore has something called SITRA, South India Technical Institute. The IIIT's formulation was based on Atira and Sitra. So he thought just as textile institute helped, maybe the institute would help the IT industry. It has really helped or not, there is a different issue, but it is important for you to know. So what happened is that even though textile has been an export earner, textile export has been couple of billions of dollars to today is about 40, 45, 50. It varies considerably. When Bangladesh came, we went down. Again, we are getting back a little bit. 40, 50, 60 billion gets a lot more important. So you should know this. Okay? And what does it translate to? Because it is also important. Going back to the slide which I mentioned that we were allowed to carry $12 simply because we did not have foreign exchange. What is the foreign exchange we have in this country today? We are close to $600 billion. That means for a country of billion people, we have, for each person, there is $600 here. Okay, so those days, we were not allowed to take beyond $12 because we did not have that kind of a cushion. And to a large extent, contribution comes from IT. But I think personally, as a professor, what makes me feel happy, see, the dollars make the economist happy. Dollars are important. But to me, what it means is lots and lots of my students are doing a great job because they all have great jobs. Jobs are extremely important. So I could have quoted any number, but as professors, we always go for what is called the prime source, right? I always look at the prime source. So I just thought that, Infosys reports are easily available on the net, so I could search. So this is March 1997, 31st of March 1997, Infosys had 3,148 persons. And 31st of March of 2022, because 2023 is still not there, right? Is 2,52,169. So you could see the growth, right? If typically I could have taken TCS, okay? But all of them have similar kind of growth story. 100-fold increase in turnover, 100-fold increase in number of people, okay? And overall, it's also interesting. We were less than 3 lakh people employed in IT industry in 1997. Today we are 50 plus lakhs, right? So 50 plus lakhs people, their families, okay? And that is what makes, okay? And in Bangalore there is a joke. There are 2 jokes maybe. Both of them are coined by my students, I will quote. The first one is that every second apartment owner is an IT professional. And every other car owner is an IT professional. And the second joke is interesting. It is profitable to write software in Bangalore. It is even more profitable to house the software engineer. It is even more profitable to transport the software engineer. It is even more profitable to feed the software engineer with no intention to be what is called gender non-neutral. It is best, it's most profitable to give a haircut to a female software engineer or the wife of a male software engineer. Because I understand haircut for women is, the markup prices are much higher than for men. Okay. So what I'm trying to say is, that is what IT has done to this country. So it is important for you to know. I think, people ask me this question. Remember, banks used to have a big opposition to the computerization. Okay, to such an extent, banks union even forced people like Professor Rangarajan, there was a Dr. Rangarajan committee, to say that, look, the maximum size of a memory of a machine that was doing computerization cannot exceed 256 kilobytes or something like that. That is the level to which we went. But the opposition, why it went? Because all the bank staff found their sons and daughters were working for TCS. Right? So they realized that it is important for them to get it. Okay. But I think I will quote some more stuff before I kind of get on to the next one. So this is something which A lot of people in India do not know, but I thought it is important for you to know. The three companies, TCS, iFlux used to be a company started by a couple of IIT Bombay folks, and now it is called Oracle Financial Services. It was acquired, was one of the first billion-dollar acquisitions in India, and Infosys. Okay, as per Gartner, these three banking software account for more than 50% of the global market share. That means you walk across the country in the planet, 200 plus countries, and look at the bank accounts of individuals. More than half the bank accounts are powered by software from India. And of course, I'm a proud Bangalorean. It so happens that this software gets written in Bangalore. Of course, quite a few of them are my students, so it's good, right? So it's amazing, right? So something like this we never had, to be actually able to impact globally. Okay. Second thing is that, there is another interesting company called InMobi. Any of you have discovered this company called InMobi? Any hands go up? Okay, go and discover, it's interesting. Okay, so this company focuses on mobile advertisement. And in mobile advertisement, who is the competitor to InMobi? Google. So a company that can compete with Google. More interesting stuff is they have algorithms which are actually able to optimize the real estate space on the screen of a mobile phone. Okay, and this is the first unicorn of this country. This is Bangalore based, and it happens to be founded by Naveen Tiwari, who happens to be the son of Professor Tiwari, who used to teach in IIT Kanpur. So it's all the connections, right? But it's just amazing. First software from India, which got installed in more than 1 billion devices. Right? Just go and discover this interesting company. 1 billion devices. So I can go on and on, because there are so many such stories, but it is important for you to, okay? And IT has impacted unicorns. There are 100 plus unicorns. See, those of you who possibly, I'm sure most of you know, but just to put you in the context, unicorn is a company whose market value is more than $1 billion US. $1 billion US is approximately 9,000 crores. A company whose market value is more than 9,000 crores is called unicorn. And in 2022, we created history in this country. We had 100 plus unicorns in 1 year. No other country had, because in spite of COVID, etc. Okay? And of course, the joke in Silicon Valley is, how do you start a startup? Okay, get funding from Silicon Valley, so-called Lakshmi, and go to Bangalore for developers. Saraswati from India. Okay, so Lakshmi from United States, Saraswati from India makes up a startup. Okay, so that is how lots and lots of startups are made. Okay, and of course you should say, in what way IT has impacted India. It's also important for you to realize. Right? We go up to 11:30, right? No, whatever. Yeah, 11:30. Okay, just want to be doubly sure. Okay, okay. You all know, must have heard of this JAM, right? Jandan, Aadhaar and Mobile. So what this Jandan, Aadhaar and Mobile did, see again another interesting IIT, IIM person, Alok Pandey. So Alok Pandey was the person who was driving it during much of the time in the Department of Financial Services. You know, in about 4 to 5 years, we added 600 million bank accounts. 600 million Indians who did not have a bank account got a bank account thanks to this combination. Aadhaar, Mobile, and Jandan project. Jandan was the name of the project of the Department of Financial Services. So I personally felt very happy, because all the janitors in my institute, I went and, because I happened to be involved with the banks, in so many banks, in Reserve Bank, NPCI, etc., etc. So I actually told all of them, I told the local bank, United Commercial Bank at that time, you should get all of them an account. So they got all of them. And then I asked them, what does it feel? So it's always important to know how they feel. It is nice, the director of the institutes got an account for us, etc. But actually they said, sir, it is very interesting. We used to go to the bank once in a while for something or other, but nobody kind of encouraged us to come inside the bank because they thought that we were not the customers, we will not be their customers. Today I am an account holder. Okay, I walk in as their customer, and their approach to us is very different because they realize that we are their customers. So that was a touching moment for me because I felt so good that, remember that no other country had done this, because first of all, there are only 2 countries with this population, right? And China had done it over a longer period of time, 20 years, but we managed to get it done in just 4 years. Okay? I don't know how many of you kind of drive around, right? There is something called FASTag, right? So remember, we used to kind of stop at the multiple toll booths, pay the toll and go. See, a lot of things happened in these few years. I still remember 1976 when we were driving around the interstate in the United States. And some of my friends, in fact, it so happened that today morning he called me from Chicago for something else. I still recalling. He said, look, will we have an interstate like driving in India in our lifetime? We were convinced it will not happen in our lifetime because we need so many cars, we need so many highways, how is it, But I just can't believe that in the last 20 years we have built NHAI. More interesting, we are actually making 2 million cars a year. So I remember 1976 when I went for the United States, this country's car production was 29,992 because there used to be a department called excise which will count every car because excise duty has to be paid. So you have a number. So less than 30,000 cars to 2 million cars. We export from my own town called Chennai, Hyundai factory export 300,000 cars. Right? So we have changed, right? And FASTag, as you move around, so it just collects the tax. So, a typical Madras to Chennai, Bangalore to Chennai travel time gets reduced by 15 minutes just because of this. Because 5 places you have to stop. It used to take an average of 3 minutes. Nowadays it takes less than 60 seconds. Right? And remember that behind the FASTag, see, Singapore had a FASTag equivalent, but it was far expensive. It was costing $99. But here there's a small little sticker. That's it, right? And then it is linked to your bank account thanks to UPI. And it works because all these drivers have a mobile phone. Right? Again, mobile phone, a FASTag. We collect about 177 crores every day. 177 crores of toll tax is collected every day with practically no human intervention. Okay? So that's what we, the IT guys, can genuinely feel. So that is what we have done. Okay? Now comes the next 20 minutes. What is that IITs have done and what is IIITs have done? Okay? So it is important for you to realize how the IITs came. And remember, this is something amazing. Come to think about it. The then people in power, starting with Pandit Nehru, the whole bunch of people, education ministers, etc., they felt there is a need for institutes like IITs soon after independence. So the Sarkar Commission Committee report is in 1946. You can go and read it. It is there on the net. Go to the Ministry of Education. Nice. Kharagpur happened in 51. Bombay happened in 58. There is a long gap. Then it quickly, the Madras, Kanpur, and the Delhi came. Okay? So, but what is interesting is IIT Bombay had collaboration with Russia. IIT Delhi had with UK. IIT Madras has with Germany. And IIT Kanpur has with US. Because I spent 20 years in IIT Kanpur, so I know more, so I will spend more time about the IIT Kanpur. It's interesting. IIT Kanpur was helped by 9 premier universities, including MIT. Okay? And at one point in time, there were more than 50 professors, and many of them are what in Hindi they call Durandhar, right? Giants, doyens, okay? Those kind of people spent significant amount of time in Kanpur. And Kanpur was tough. Uttar Pradesh itself is backward state. And Kanpur relatively is supposed to be industrial town, but we were actually outside of the town. Reaching them was difficult. So amidst a lot of cows and dogs and bullocks and bullock carts, etc., etc. And you might have seen newspapers, the first computer was actually transported in a bullock cart from the airport to IIT Kanpur. Okay, so that's the kind of lot of stories. Okay, but it is amazing that an institute like that could be developed. And, from the IITs, how many things happened? The IIT system had a phenomenal impact on the entire higher education system. The semester system came from IITs. The grading system came from IITs, the A, B, C, D grade instead of numeric grades. The CGPA, okay? And then remember earlier, either you passed or failed. That means you passed the first year and moved to the second year, or you repeat the first year. They said you don't have to. If you have failed one subject, you make up only that subject. So subject-based passing, that came from IITs. Okay? And then internal assessment completely came from IITs. You don't have a university level examination. Okay? And a whole bunch of them, the concept of lecture plus tutorial plus labs and a credit system which measures the effort of the lecture, the effort of the lab, the effort of the tutorials came from the IIT system. Okay? So IIT system had phenomenal impact on the entire higher education system. So today, to a large extent, what you take it for granted, and of course, the concept of a placement, the institute helping you with a placement, so those things were just not part of the traditional university system. So, and then of course, the research-led education, we always say that you need to create knowledge and then distribute knowledge. Distribution of knowledge is teaching, creation of knowledge is research. You need to create before you can distribute. Otherwise, you become a teaching shop, right? You become a training house. How do you create those things? Okay. So all these things kind of came from the IIT system. And of course, for a long time, we were just 5 IITs. Okay, from 1951 IIT Kharagpur to 1994, 43 years, right? And then something happened. Guwahati happened, IIT Guwahati. And then, of course, IIT Roorkee happened. And then in the last few years, lot of IITs have come to such an extent that lots of people, old people, think that we are diluting the brand, etc., etc. But I personally feel that, I think a country of our size possibly need 100 IITs. That's my personal view. Okay, but today we have 23 IITs. The last one to be born is Goa 2016, and of course Professor Sadagopan knows that even today they have not even identified the land. Forget about the campus. But that is what we are an interesting country. We do amazing stuff. We will actually send things to the moon, okay, etc., etc. But okay, some IITs we do it like this. Some IITs we just mess it up. But that's part of it. And then we have also created, if I can use a word, very strong word, but nonetheless, I'm a Unix guy, right? In Unix, we use called a daemon, right? So equivalent of that is daemon, right? There's a daemon called JEE. Why is it a daemon? Because it makes it so difficult for so many of people to get in. Okay? Just in a lighter vein, this is something which you guys should know. So 1991, IIT Kanpur director asked us to do a small little back of the envelope calculation. We did a back of the envelope calculation. 1991, a typical IIT budget was 18-19 crores. There were only 5 IITs. So the IIT's budget was 100 crores. But what was the coaching business for JEE? Was 1,000 crores. So JEE coaching was 10 times more than the IIT annual budget. And we thought that was crazy, etc. But we did a back of the envelope calculation in 2014. By 2014-15, already 20 plus IITs have come. The IIT budgets have become much larger, 200 crores. So 20 into 20, 4,000 crore. Lo and behold, the JEE coaching business is more than 10 times. This is 47,000 crores as per Economic Times. Right? That is why I call JEE as a demon. But anyway, so. And 16,000 seats are allotted through JOSA for the 23 IITs. Okay? Okay. So now look at these numbers. We are a country of 1.4 billion people. All the IITs put together, we still admit only 16,000 students. Okay? A large American university like Rutgers admits 20,000 students. And there is even a larger example. If you go to the NY, New York City University, one of the largest urban clusters, it has a total number of 450,000 students. 450,000. I just checked in the morning also I just wanted to be doubly sure I'm quoting the right numbers. I checked on the website, 450,000. Okay? So we are still small. We still have so much to go. So I think that is, you must have heard about what is special about India. You make any statement about India which is true, the opposite is also true. That is India, right? So we have grown a lot, we have a lot to grow. Okay? And what is the immediate future of IITs? At least my way of looking at it is, I think a lot of things are happening together. IITs are expanding. IITs are kind of putting their focus. And we are also realizing that we need to get interdisciplinary, transdisciplinary, and et cetera, et cetera. Lots of interesting things are happening. Schools of designs are happening. IIT Bombay had one of the very first school of design. And then IIT Kharagpur has the School of Law. And recently, thanks to significant investment from private entrepreneurs, IISc and IIT Kanpur are getting into a medical school. So it is interesting. I think next few years, IITs are going to be interesting. I also find that some of the IITs want to be even among the, there's a very interesting, you have what is called first generation IITs, second generation IITs, third generation IITs. The 5 IITs are first generation IITs. Roorkee, BHU, Guwahati, they're all second generation. And Goa, etc., Palakkad, they are the third generation. There's a nice healthy competition among them. And some of the third generation IITs want to give a hard time to the first generation IITs. I think IIT Hyderabad is talking of 20,000 students soon. Okay, whereas, some of the old IITs will still remain 4,000, 5,000. So it's interesting. Okay, and what is that? What is IIIT? This is just one more eye, okay, or 2 eyes to 3 eyes, okay. As I mentioned, this was originally our Minister for Aviation, okay, so his idea, okay. So the third T, okay, that's the reason why he located it in Gwalior, because it happens to be his town. The first IIIT to actually happen, and once again what happens is, there are multiple ways of doing instantiation, So what happens, you announce it, you put a GO. But before it take off, it so happened that Hyderabad and Bangalore, we took off faster, so we actually, and within that, there is always a brownie point, right? So IIIT Bangalore, we decided to go with the masters initially. So we graduated the first set of students. IIIT Hyderabad had a BTech program. They graduated 4 years later. So we graduated the first student. And Gwalior took a little while to actually get people, buildings, etc., etc. And so what happened was that the IIIT Gwalior and the IIIT Allahabad were under the Ministry of Human Resource Development, MHRD, now it's called Department of Education. The IIIT Bangalore and Hyderabad, we had interesting chief ministers who were actually competing, who were also thinking differently. S.M. Krishna in Karnataka and Naidu Garu in Andhra Pradesh. And they were acting like CEOs. So they actually went to the industry and said, you guys write some checks, we will write some checks. And industry said, whatever check you write, I will write a matching check. And the industry folks thought that government will not do much, so we don't have to, but government surprised them, government wrote a check, so it became very difficult, embarrassing for them not to write a check, but a lot of it is history. But good thing is, it took off real fast. And part of the reason why it happened in Bangalore and Hyderabad was that IT companies were there, they actually needed people, and they found it was their own interest because they are actually going to get a high quality people. But lots of other things also happened. Ambani has put together an interesting institute in Ahmedabad called DAIICT, Dhirubhai Ambani Institute of Information and Communication Technology. It happened just a couple of years later. And in Trivandrum, IIIT DM happened. And then the IIIT Bhubaneswar happened. I still remember that it was a chance meeting with Naveen Patnaik and the Mindtree person, Subrato Bakshi. He said, "Chalo hamare saath." So I went with him. He said, "Look, we'll make a slick presentation." We made some 4 slides. And sometimes, it's very interesting to see some of the chief ministers, the way they act. So the meeting was there. Next day, IIIT Bhubaneswar was there. Okay? So, and right in Pune, Finolex company wanted to do something interesting. They created something called I Square IT. Okay? So lots. And then came one bureaucrat. He happened to be the former election commission chairman. I forget his name. Okay? So he was in the planning commission. Not session. This was a Oriya gentleman. Okay? So anyway, I'll remember. So he is the person who made a proposal sitting in planning commission called 20 IIIT project. And he came up with this jargon called PPP, private public partnership. So 20 IIITs came. So today we have all about, depending on how you count, some of the institutes, the IIIT DM got merged into something else. And there was one IIIT in Calcutta which closed. Okay, and then there was one IIIT, it's very interesting. There was a time when it was fashion to start IIITs. And Vaishnavi Devi, Ma Vaishnavi Devi Trust created a IIIT. Okay, never took off. Okay, so lots of them, but give and take, there are close to about 30 of them. About 6,000 seats are done through JOSA. Okay, and my feeling is that it will go through some consolidation phase in the next few years, how it will be. But what is that IITs have done to India and what is that IIITs have done to India? Then we will have time for questions. Okay? So, it's interesting that a lot of time people will make criticize. They say, "Oh, IITs are big white elephant, they consume a lot of money." And particularly you go to university departments, they have a right because universities get such paltry sums of grants from the government. Relatively, IITs get a larger amount. But even there it is much smaller. So just to give you some numbers, I was teaching, so I can tell you with some confidence. I was teaching for a year at Rutgers, 1997. The Rutgers budget was $4.2 billion US. Right? You multiply by 9,000 crores. So you get the number, right? And look at the IIT budget, 200 crore per year. Right? All IITs put together is still much, much smaller. So in that sense, but compared to the investment that has gone into IITs, we have done amazing stuff. You all know that internet came to India through a project called ERNet. I jokingly tell people who are the old-time programmers, you have a variable declaration called int. Int, ERNet is internet, right? So that is how internet came to this country. And many of you would have used the NPTEL, which is a large project, okay? And right during COVID, we kind of surprised the world. In fact, we surprised all of us. Engineers and doctors have never worked together in this country. COVID brought us together. There was a ventilator project at IIT Kanpur. Bottoms up, grounds up. A ventilator was designed, prototype, made, manufactured, supplied in large numbers, all within a year or two. Okay, so it happened. Okay, so of course you all would have seen the last few days, there is a lot of news going around. Bharat OS, called Bhar OS. Okay, so we are trying to build a competitor to iOS and Android. Will we succeed? We don't know. But I think we should try. If we don't try, what is the chance of success? Maybe we'll succeed, who knows? We had a director by name Professor Sampath in IIT Kanpur. He had a nice expression. If you tell him something, he says, who knows, the horse may fly. The horse may fly, okay, so maybe Bhar OS will take off, we don't know. But I think we need to try. If not, something else will succeed. But we are doing. But look at these startups which have come from IIT alum. Flipkart. Upgrade, Ola, Paytm. Each one represents just not one startup, a series of startups. Okay, Nykaa, Myntra, all these things would not have happened but for a Flipkart. And then you have Simply Learn, Not So Simply Learn, Complex Learn, okay? And then, you know, Baiju, Not So Baiju, Giju, okay? All these things happened after upgrade, okay? And then, of course, you have Ola, and we have so many of them, you know, right in Bangalore, all the auto drivers have an app, okay? All these things came thanks to Ola. And Paytm, and then there is something else, you know, not something, some pay. Okay, lots of such things happen. So all, see, you have a whole range of the startups that happened this. And of course, you know, so this is our trumping card time, right? So we, the IIT profs, okay, so we don't want to lose an opportunity to trump our alumni successful. So remember, I am taking two examples, you know. IBM is a legendary company. For a long, long time, the only computer company in the world that mattered was IBM. And then there was a small little competition from a bunch of companies, used to be called Burroughs, Univac, NCR, Control Data, and Honeywell. All of them put together was not even 10% of IBM. Okay? And then, of course, there is a new generation which has completely upstaged IBM, Google. Okay? Both of them are run by IIT boys. Right? One from IIT Kanpur, Arvind, and one from IIT Kharagpur, Sundar Pichai. Right? And you know, we actually do many interesting stuff. You think that IITs produce only engineers? Yes, we produce engineers, but we also do interesting engineers. Look at Subbarao and Raghuram Rajan. Right? IIT Kharagpur and IIT Delhi. Okay? And then look at Subra. Subra is a very special. He is an IIT Madras product. He was the MIT Dean. He was the NSF director. He was the president of Carnegie Mellon. And currently is Nanyang Technological University president. Right? Across the globe, across stuff. So I just took this example. And of course, I have a special stuff. He happens to be my own MTech student. He is now the Minister for IT and Railways, Ashwini Kumar Vaishnav. Right? So that is okay. So you might ask, you know, have IIITs have done something? So I thought that, you know, I should tell you that, look, you know, small way, some interesting stuff have happened. And, you know, many times people do not know that, you know, I'm just taking example from IIIT-Bangalore because as a director, I have been involved, so I can talk with the direct one instead of indirect stuff. You know, it's interesting. We are executing a project called MOSIP, which is Modular Open Source Identity Project. This is Aadhaar-like stuff completely available in open source for many countries. Already 3 countries, Indonesia, Morocco, and I think Sri Lanka are experimenting with that. So Indonesia has already issued 40+ million identities using this. So idea is, see, Aadhaar is a closed software built by India for India, but here have open sourced it and make it available to anybody. So it is funded by Bill and Melinda Foundation, Tata Trust, etc. It's about 300 crores of funding, okay, but executed by, I happen to be the PI as a project execution, okay. So something which we could do, and it's interesting. This is now part of what you call digital public goods, which India is creating. So how do you create a digital public good? You know, it's other interesting stuff. Myanmar, you know, Burma, wanted to have an institute for IT. And Japanese actually proposed that they should have an IT institute. But it's very interesting, you know, it's very humbling. The Japanese, the Myanmar minister telling the Japanese that please set up an institute for manufacturing. For IT, we'll go to India. Okay, so that's how they came. And the minister during the launch, you know, it was executed by IIIT-Bangalore, 6 years. So in Myanmar, they still have the old system. The school system is 11 years. So we were actually doing a 5-year BTech program, the one which I went through in 70s. Okay, so there's a 5-year program. We just completed the 5th year. And you know, once again, it was so satisfying and humbling. The minister put it in a very funny way. Hey, Sadagopan, we have done something together. I said, what is it? He said, you added an I to an IIT. And he says, I added an I to an MIT. Right? That is MIIT, Myanmar Institute of Information Technology. So grounds up, complete stuff. At the peak, we had about 30 faculty members from India. Okay, and it's interesting. Whatfix, you all know WhatsApp. Go and discover what is Whatfix. Whatfix is already a $600 million value. It will soon be a unicorn, started by a first batch alum of IIIT-Bangalore. Okay, and in the morning I was telling my friends that we have a neurosurgeon from NIMHANS. He is registered for PhD. He did 4 courses in computer science, passed all of them with A grade, completed his comprehensive. I felt so happy. Normally, as a director of the institute, I wish all the people who passed their comprehensive. But I took an exception. I took him and his wife out for dinner. I was so happy because honestly speaking, he had suggested that he will do he will do a PhD in computer science. We were actually trembling. What happens if this guy fails? We can't compromise on rigor, right? But hats off to him. He did the course as well. He did the he already has a patent for doing robotic surgery in the brain, but the robo looks like a snake. It does like this because that's the only way you can do inside a brain. So it's interesting. And we had I had the most satisfying experience of my 22 years at IIIT Bangalore. One day a blind student came with her chikapa. Chikapa is that uncle, father's younger brother. And her father's younger brother happens to be a professor at University of Illinois. And then my secretary said, this girl and the chikapa wants to meet with you. I said, fine. So what can I do? She kind of got them. I realized that this girl was a born blind. And Vidya is her name. And then the uncle says that, look, Sadagopan, I want you to consider her for admission to your institute. So I told him, sir, you know how our institutes run. No director, no president, no prime minister can admit a student. They have to go through this. And he said, no, I'm not asking you to compromise anything. Okay? She will go through all your academic rigor. But she is a born blind student, you have to help her. I said, how can we help her? She already had managed to have done a BSc. We have an MSc program. And I want her to apply for a MSc degree. And you don't reject her simply because she happens to be visually impaired student. Then I told the gentleman, Professor, you understand, the directors of institute don't decide many things in things are changing. I think Subrata Bakshi is the first person who has created history. He has written a check for 600 crores, right? You start from tomorrow. Have taught us how the mother and the father decide the roles. Okay, you play it, So this is a kind of playing. But last thing, sir, this is what I learned from my friends in America, people who run large universities in US. They say that raising money, finding money, etc., are much easier in India than in the United States, even though we think the other way. Okay, I think the respect that, in fact, let me put it this way. One of my Harvard professors told me, he said, Sadagopan, you don't realize that you guys in India enjoy a respect. We, the Harvard professor, are respected, not simply because we are Harvard professors. We make tons and tons of money. You guys don't make tons and tons of money. You are still respected. And much more interesting, your school teachers make far less money, paltry money, but they are still more respected than you. I think that is India. So in that sense, as long as you factor in, there is a larger, what is called social connect. There is a larger social acceptance. Okay? But what probably will not work as an institution building is, if you think that you are sitting in ivory tower, things won't work. Okay? So you have to take that extra step. But you take one step, they'll take 10 steps. But you need to take the extra step. Sorry for that long answer to a short question. Thank you. Any other question? Yeah. Could I have the mic? Yeah.
Hello. Myself, Dr. Swati. So thanks for your speech. As you rightly said, this is India tomorrow, which is sitting over here.
Yes.
And as we are already aware that IITs and IIITs, they have played a lot amount of work. But as you rightly said, that the number of seats are very less. So my request you to give the message to my students who are sitting over here, who are the tomorrow's India.
Okay. Thank you. So you see, I was just telling Dr. Parvati that, it is nice to be in IIT, IIM, IIIT, etc., but our numbers are so small. I think institute like Somaiya represent the larger ecosystem. You just need, because a country of such a large size, you actually need. And then what you are learning in places like Somaiya, okay, I think it's a far more holistic learning. There are no boundaries between the departments. So you actually end up, and I think, I was quite amazed to see you have a school of dharmic studies. You have school of engineering, you have school of management, you have school of allied health sciences, you have a medical college. Make the best use of it, because our scope in IITs and IIITs are far narrow, but your scope is much bigger. Can you make the best use of it? And then to my faculty colleagues in the departments, please don't put barriers to students. Let students take courses across. We never know which would be useful at what time, right? So somebody who is, today it is interesting. Everything is becoming a science, everything is technology. Whoever thought that sports would become such a big science? Whoever thought that Nike shoes will be $1 billion company, right? It's fitness, right? So what happens is sports to fitness to health, and increasingly, do get a chance to read Satya Nadella's book. Satya Nadella writes very interesting stuff. Satya Nadella runs a company called Microsoft, right? And he's the CEO. He says that, look, maybe 20, 30 years from now, half the population would be in what is called caregiving business. See, today caregiving means a nurse. But a teacher is also a caregiving. Right? A mentor is also a caregiving. A coach is also a caregiving. So as the robots end up playing more and more with AI taking over, so I think for 200 years, we human beings have tended to machine. See, even today, with all the smartness of a smartphone, so I have to look up and look at my calendar. I have to organize my time. So why can't the machine read all my mails and organize it and telling me in the morning, hey, Sadagopan, this is what you should do today. We don't have such thing like that, right? We are tending to the machines. So Satya says, thanks to automation, machines will tend to machines. We will have time to tend to human beings. So the hope, half the planet will become caregiving. So caregiving would be far more important. So are we ready for that? Question is, everybody should have a mentally an agility by which you start taking care of others. So many ways. So caregiving need not be only physical. It could be mental, it could be psychological, it could be thoughtful, it could be ideas, it could be helping somebody to paint. And I think today, I think places like Somaya would be lucky. You should actually aspire not only to produce Nobel laureate, but Oscar winners, and maybe you become the next to Picasso, so the artist and the paints, and you become the sports person, win some Nobel prizes, win some medals, okay? I think what happens is you change your way, and much more important stuff is holistic learning, lifelong learning, and once again, look around. Keep looking around, because the diversity is something which is so important. And I think you people are lucky to be part of a university where diversity is just not talked about, but practiced. Because you have. And my own request to you, sir, you can take this example. Carnegie Mellon is a premier university in Pittsburgh. There's a University of Pittsburgh called UPitt, which is not that premier, but nonetheless, each one is a large 30,000 students. But to ensure that students can take courses across, their calendar runs half an hour. One is 9 to 10, 10 to 11, other is 9:30 to 10:30, 11:30 to 12:30, and they run buses in between. Out of the 30,000 plus 30,000, 60,000 students, only 600 students take courses across. But to help those 600 students, they run buses across. Okay, so that is how they go to the extent of celebrating the diversity, celebrating the people wanting to do. My request is, I think the medical school, the engineering school, and the design school, and the business school, you should work like a seamless school. So remember, go back to the words, the university. University is a place where we have access to universal knowledge. So we should rediscover the roots of a university, and let people start doing courses across. So madam, that is what I would request you to do. Encourage people to take courses across. Encourage people to do projects across. So can a medical student and an engineering student do a project together? Can a law student and medical student do a project together? So those kind of stuff, which is so possible for you, which is actually not possible in IIT system or a IIIT system, because we don't have that diversity. So that is what my appeal would be. And again, appeal to all the students, please make the best use of Somaya. Thank you.
Hello. Good morning, sir.
Yes.
Thank you for a nice, informative session. As you have concluded, sir, my name is Vimal Modi. We have come a long way, as you have concluded rightly, but few observations.
Sure.
Okay, during the course of my last few years of journey, while helping some students to decide some career or, admissions and all that. One thing I realize, the students, the higher education particularly, okay, it becomes very challenging. It is at times I find very exploitative procedures for admission to higher studies, looking at middle class, Indian middle class. For example, if we take a case of MBA admission, for example, many people ask for my advice and guidance on that. Uh, there are several of tens of entrance exam which a student has to give. Okay, like the best thing recently happened was IIT Main, JEE Main and JEE Advance,
Right.
where there are two exams clubbed together, and depending on the institution, which can select either main as a starting point or JEE. I mean, there is no such things in other spheres. And when a student has to appear for entrance exam to gain admission in 10 different MBA courses, not only that, they have to pay 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 worth of fees. They have to write separate kind of essays for admissions. They have to give separate multiple interviews. And what happens is there is no track, like, you know, a student takes admission in multiple institutions and then he has to ultimately choose only one. He is forced to make some advance payment in lakhs, okay, which is waived, I mean, which is gone now. So, I mean, like, point I'm trying to make here is, please share your views whether higher education is getting corporatized or is becoming a business kind of a thing, and what can be done for this. I mean, people like you, the senior academicians, what they can do to, I mean, take care of such issues. My second point is when I was studying some courses at school level or at engineering level, I realized that if a student, for example, is very good at coding, he wants to make a career in coding only. After 12th, they realize this. Even after 10th, nowadays, they start realizing this. He has no option but to study maybe at least 20 different subjects while he completes engineering, and 50% of this is targeted towards hardware industry, okay, which he's not interested in, he's not inclined to do that. So what kind of education systems, if at all, is emerging, or, I mean, India is doing? Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I think both are excellent questions. See, the first question, you know, about the multiple entrance exam. This is something where people at different stages, education, administration, all the way to the ministers, to secretaries, are quite concerned. Several of the directors have put together different stuff. Already you would have seen that, you know, this NTA, National Testing Authority, was created a few years back, which conducts the JEE now and also the other exam, GATE, etc. So we are, and you know, some flexibility. See, what happened was JEE exam. If on that day the boy or a girl who was taking happened to be sick, so and he or she is not able to make it, 1 year is lost. To make it up, so JEE is now given 4 times, at least 2 times during the COVID time. So study. So they are actually giving multiple option. But let me also tell you the other side. I think what happens is, in India, we also take sometimes things too seriously, more than the students, the parents. So what happens is, some student gave the JEE exam and just, I would say, got a rank of 8,000. So with 8,000, he or she will get a reasonable branch in reasonable institute. But what happened, the mother forces the student, hey, kuch karo, improve karo. So they take it second time, so that they can try to get. So what is happening is, a good number of students end up taking multiple times the exam, even though the original option was basically to help those people who kind of who get into problem because of maybe a road accident here or a train cancellation there or somebody falling sick or he or she himself falling sick. Okay, so it is a social dimension. And about the larger entrance exams, etc., once again, government is attempting to have, you see, at least to some extent, you know, Karnataka government was one of the first to start the central exam, CET. So many states have done it, so that most colleges. Again, people are trying. But what happens is that, you see, beyond a point, you know, my father used to say that don't waste your time too much in trying to make the bad boys into good boys. Spend your time to make the good boys into better boys. So there is a fair amount of money to be made through entrance exam, and some of the colleges are hell-bent on doing it. So beyond a point, you can't stop because the avarice, the wanting to make money is so much in them. And even yesterday, I was just talking to the Vice Chancellor and the Chancellor that there is a lot of bad money that goes into education. So we can't fight beyond. Let us get more good money into education. Hopefully, that good money will kind of flush out the bad money. So what I'm saying is that beyond a point, whatever you do, they try to find some excuse. But there have been concerted efforts. In fact, the current government, the minister, secretary, etc., are very concerned about, and they are very for the NEET exam, they actually managed to get it. There is so much opposition, particularly from my state called Tamil Nadu, but they have been able to do it. They are talking of something similar for the MBAs. I do hope they succeed, but it's kind of hard. The second question was? Multiple. See, the multiple subjects, it's again a larger social problem. See, India is one country where, okay, I'm an old man, so please kind of, okay, so permit me to make some strong statements. See, lot of parents want to live a new life through their children. So what it means is, मुझे IIT में जाने को मुफ्त मौका नहीं मिला, कम से कम मेरे बच्चों को मिलना चाहिए. So the child may not be interested, but you kind of force him or her. So I think there is too much of that in this country, particularly among IT professionals. So my question is, if they don't go to IIT and IIM, what is the big deal? But they just make it. So what is happening? That is one part. Second part, I'll give you actual case. I happen to assist a lot of schools. So there is one famous school in Chennai, in Bangalore called Kumaran School. So one day I got a request from some teachers, computer science teachers. They wanted to come and meet me. I said, okay, fine. I said, ma'am, what is the problem? So there are 3 women. They said, look, sir, we have been asked to teach C++. We already are teaching them C. I said, why you have to teach C++? These 2 7th grade students. So first of all, C++, but C itself is not the best language to teach the students. You have much better languages. C could be good for machine, but not good for teaching the kids. But what I realized is that particular class, there are some 40 plus parents who all go to Wipro. So these parents, out of their concern, they think that this is what their children should know. They go to the teacher. He said, "Aapko kya problem hai? Computer chahiye, kharid ke de denge. Software chahiye, kharid ke de denge." They give their hardware, they give the software. They think just because they're IT professionals, they know more than the teachers. This is another peculiar problem. Just because I teach in a higher institution, I think that I know the lower institution. This is stupid. I think none of us can teach ever a school teacher, school student. We are only programmed to teach higher education. But school teaching is very different. What is to be taught to the 7th grade is a very different thing. The teachers know it. Unfortunately, because these guys make more money, they are able to put pressure on the management and do it. So finally, luckily, the management listens to me, so I got it off. But not often you are lucky, right? So that is a problem. So this is a social problem than to do with the institution itself. So I think, I would say the parents should unitedly say that, look, you take a country like Norway. The teachers, the school teachers are respected. And they are the people who are paid the highest salary. And they think the school teachers know what is best for the students, which is true. I think we need to respect the school teacher. Unfortunately, we don't. And that is a problem. And remember, even 50 years back, go back to your father's time, mother's time. I think school teachers were respected more at that time. But these days, everyone is measured to how much money you make. And that is a problem. Because school teachers don't make money, we don't respect them enough. Okay? So I'm sorry, I have not answered your question fully, but that's all I know. Okay? Thank you. So you tell me when to stop, otherwise, we professors go on talking.
So we have one more question?
Yes.
You wanted to have one question? Yes. Mike, please. So was raising his hand. Yes, so that will be the last question.
you told that this credits and choice-based credit system started. I mean, it's given by IITs.
Right.
And of course, I was alumni of IIT Bombay, so I have gone through that process. I want to know now the NP is at doorstep. It's going to be implemented. It's implemented in some of the states,
Right.
partially, fully. It's in process. It will take time.
Right.
At the same time, I wanted to know the status of interdisciplinary studies and multidisciplinary studies in IITs, especially.
Okay, see, interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary studies is starting to happen only now. See, to some extent, I tell you, the NEP has been a big, I would say, blessing in disguise for many of these things, because at the country level, we are kind of doing it. But I think we still have a long way to go. We are not doing enough. I think the engineering students do not look at beyond engineering departments for the courses, and across the sciences, across the social sciences, etc., is still far from true. But I think it is happening a little bit, partly because I think, I would say that one of the good things is that as parents, we all will realize our children and grandchildren listen to us less. It has its own plus point. We were blindly listening to our parents. Our children and grandchildren do not. So that is a saving grace. Okay? So they will put pressure on faculty to kind of open up. Because, it's a two-way, right? So as they say, it takes two to tango. So, but once the demand is happening, so it will happen. But I think much more interesting is that all institutes across the IITs now are recognizing the need for interdisciplinary studies, and we are increasingly kind of starting to work with, and even some of the large projects, like DST's big project, which is all into hundreds of crores. Many of those things are interdisciplinary, which are forcing also interinstitutional, that cyber physical security. So those projects, there are about 16, 17 such projects of DST, all of them are interinstitutional. So we are going beyond interdisciplinary to interinstitutional. And I think it will be nice, I jokingly tell people that American universities have all the departments. That is what is called design by hardware. India will do it by software. Place like IIT-Bangalore, you have IIM, you have a IIIT, you have IISc, you have National Law School, you have NID, okay? And imagine that students can take courses across. And then, through software we can control, etc., etc. And we are seeing close to it. Already, at least among the 3 institutes, a lot of courses are offered across. And I think right now, it is an exception. So soon it will become a mainstream. But I think we see the trends happening. I do expect more of that to happen. Thank you. As I said, I am an incorrigible optimist. So thank you.
Sir.
Thank you all. And a big thank you for all of you for such patient listening. Thank you.
So thank you so much for that IIIT lecture, insightful, interesting, inspiring, and tempering session to aim us big and also to be true to the word India's tomorrow. Sir, I would request you to come again to the stage because I thought you would be going this side. We need to felicitate you, sir. May I request Dr. Professor Pillai, our Vice Chancellor and the brainchild of Somya Public Lecture, to please honor our guest. As soon as he comes, go there. No problem. so much, sir. Now may I request Dr. Suresh Chakrande, Principal KJ Somaiya Institute of Engineering and Information Technology, to please deliver the vote of thanks.
Good afternoon to all of you. Being in audience, I always feel whether the person who is giving vote of thanks speaks more than the speaker. So I'll be very brief. In a couple of minutes, I'll complete my job. You have heard today's speaker, Professor Sadagopan, who is Director of IIIT Bangalore. When we were talking outside about the transformation of education system in India and what he has narrated in last almost 1 hour, the sentence is what he has used, which I like more. We generally say we have to go a long way. We say simply this thing only. Many times, many speakers I heard, we have to go a long way. But he said we have come a long way and still we have to go a long way. And still it's there on the board. Lot many has happened and lot many things is going to happen. And that's what the development of country like India has happened. We have done lot of development has happened, and still we have to go a long way. And the main instrumental part for this development of India, with due respect to all sectors, it's the IT sector. He talked about 3 T's. T, one T for T, other T for textile, and third T for technology, or IT. And he has told about the transformation of many institutes like IITs, IIMs, and in few days, I mean, what we expect at Somaiya institutions, under the leadership of our own chairman, Sri Samir Somaiya, who always appreciates, motivates to all individual faculty, individual institute to do anything for the holistic development of the students. And today's speaker, he has taught in 2 institutes, IIT and IIM. To me, every individual faculty at the institute, in IITs or IIMs, he himself or herself is an institute. And we have heard, we are lucky enough to listen to an eminent person like Professor Sadagopan. So on behalf of Somaiya institutions, on behalf of all of us, we thank for his excellent lecture on this transformation of higher and technical education in India, post-independence. We have with us 2 eminent persons, I'll say again institutes. Professor Pillai, Vice Chancellor of Somaiya Vidyavihar University, and this public lecture series of his brainchild, as Dr. Parvati said, our initiative, and guiding each and every institute, each and every faculty and students for their development, and other institute, Professor Shivgavkar, who was from IIT Bombay, and you know very well his contribution in the technical education, higher education. So 2 institutes are there within our Somaiya Institute to motivate us and guide us. And few years down the line, let's see Somaiya Institute itself be near to one of the IITs. So with this, and the faculty members, staff members, students, and the principals and directors of all Somaiya institutions are here to listen to this talk, and I thank each and everyone, and of course Dr. Parvati to connect each one of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, because very rarely he doesn't thank himself. So thank you so much, Dr. Suresh, sir. And also special thanks to students who came from IIT. I know it disrupted your academic, but still then you came. Thank you so much. I will leave you with a powerful quote by Dr. Abdul Kalam. Thinking is a capital. Enterprise is a way. Hard work is a solution. There is no other solution. Have a great, impactful day. Bye.